Welcome to this explainer. Today we're taking a deep, scholarly dive into Christopher Nolan's 2010 cinematic masterpiece. Over a decade after its release, we are still completely fascinated by this film, and honestly, for good reason. It didn't just break the box office, it completely shifted the tectonic plates of modern blockbuster filmmaking.
But let me just ask you this. 14 years later, why are we still staring at that spinning top? It's a question that has literally haunted pop culture. So today, we're going to dissect exactly why this film continues to live rent-free in our collective subconscious. Let's unravel the central mystery of how a movie about dreams became an absolute, defining pillar of modern cinema.
If we look at the Hollywood landscape right now, it is, heavily dominated by repetitive franchise IP and these sprawling, interconnected cinematic universes. We see modern CGI-heavy franchises relying on established fan bases and, let's be real, entirely predictable formulas. But contrast that with Inception's narrative complexity. It's a completely standalone, original, wildly layered story that demands your full intellectual engagement. It didn't treat the audience like passive viewers. It treated us like active participants in a massive puzzle.
There's this sentiment that perfectly captures this feeling from the r/film community on Reddit. One user noted, "I think Inception is one of our last truly original blockbusters confined in a tight runtime." And that feeling is pretty much everywhere. Moviegoers recognize just how incredibly rare it is for a studio to take a massive, big-budget swing on an entirely original idea that actually wraps up its story in a single film. No post-credit scenes teasing 3 sequels. Just one complete story.
Now you might be wondering, how did Christopher Nolan even get this made? The answer is a staggering $160 million. To put that into perspective, Nolan had actually pitched an 80-page treatment for this film to Warner Brothers way back in 2001, but he absolutely knew, he needed the industry clout and the experience of directing massive productions before tackling the infinite potential of the human mind. So it wasn't until his astronomical success with The Dark Knight in 2008 that he was finally handed the blank check to realize this insanely ambitious vision.
So what is the core mechanism driving this $160 million engine? Inception is defined as the intricate art of planting an idea deep within a subject's subconscious dream state so they believe it to be their own. What makes Nolan's approach so brilliant here is his auteur instinct to ground a fantastical, crazy premise in pseudoscience. He creates specific, specialized roles for the heist team, right? You've got the extractor, the architect, the forger, the point man, and the chemist. This structure gives this extraordinary dream world a strict semblance of order and expertise.
And the way he handles the narrative? Nolan manages 4 cascading timelines simultaneously, which is an absolute masterclass in narrative architecture. Step 1 is the rainy city, where time runs 20 times faster than reality. Step 2 drops us into the hotel, where gravity shifts wildly based on what the van is doing in the level above it. Step 3 plunges into the snowy hospital fortress, which represents the deep subconscious. And finally, Step 4 is limbo, this space of unconstructed dream reality where decades pass in a single night. Through visual cues and just brilliant pacing, Nolan keeps us completely oriented while juggling all these complex layers.
And visually, these architectural concepts manifest on screen in truly breathtaking ways. We're talking about Parisian streets physically folding in on themselves and gravity-defying architecture totally bending the rules of physics. These images perfectly illustrate the immense visual scale of the architect's power in the dream world. It's world-building at its absolute finest, and it captivated audiences worldwide by showing us things we had literally never seen on film before.
But here is the real secret to why those visuals still hold up more than a decade later. Nolan's absolute obsession with practical effects. Instead of relying entirely on green screens, the crew actually built a massive 100-foot rotating hallway for Joseph Gordon-Levitt to fight in. That created genuine physical weightlessness. They used high-pressure nitrogen air cannons to safely blast real debris around the actors in that Parisian cafe scene. They even mounted the physical body of a real freight train onto a truck chassis to drive it down the streets of Los Angeles. No way, it's just unbelievable. What you should definitely take away from this is that tangible, handcrafted set pieces will always outlast digital trends.
Okay, but a movie cannot survive on cool practical effects alone. The heist mechanics are fascinating, sure, but the emotional core is what truly anchors this film. Which brings us to a pivotal question.
What happens when the subconscious fights back? Because despite all of this advanced dream-sharing technology, the human mind is fiercely protective, and it carries its own inescapable scars. This brings us to the tragic figure of Mal, played beautifully by Marion Cotillard. Cobb's unresolved grief over his deceased wife manifests as an incredibly destructive projection that violently sabotages his meticulously planned heists. She basically represents the profound trauma that Cobb simply cannot let go of. And this proves that all the intellect and technology in the world cannot easily override human grief. Cobb isn't really fighting security guards in these dreams, right? He's fighting his own guilt.
And that deeply emotional journey all culminates in this single, highly iconic image, the spinning top, Cobb's totem. This small, seemingly insignificant object is designed to tell him whether he is awake or still dreaming. If it spins forever, he's in a dream. If it falls, he's in reality. This exact frame, wobbling just before abruptly cutting to black, is perhaps the most debated movie ending of the entire 21st century.
Let's just break down the sheer cultural phenomenon of this debate. It sparked absolutely endless fan theories. We even have Michael Caine's famous rule. He admitted he was pretty confused by the script, so Nolan told him, "If I'm in it, it's reality." Since Caine is in that final scene, many fans take that as gospel. The public reaction was so visceral that Christopher Nolan himself admitted he used to snake into the back of movie theaters just to hear the incredible mixture of audience gasps, groans, and total frustrations when the screen abruptly cut to black.
But here is the ultimate film scholar's insight, coming directly from the director himself. Nolan stated, "The point of the shot is the character doesn't care at that point. The ambiguity is not an emotional ambiguity, it's an intellectual one." So the absolute crucial point is this. Cobb finally walks away from the top to embrace his children. He stops obsessing over what is perfectly real and just chooses to live in the moment. The physical reality of that totem, it's completely irrelevant because his emotional journey is finally resolved.
Zooming back out to look at the broader industry impact, we can clearly see a historical parallel here. Just as the Wachowskis completely redefined the aesthetic and philosophy of sci-fi blockbusters in the 1990s with The Matrix, Christopher Nolan evolved the genre for the 2010s with Inception. Both of these films proved that you could combine highly stylized, groundbreaking action with really deep, philosophical questions about the nature of our reality, and audiences would show up in droves.
Because of that phenomenal success, a whole wave of intelligent, director-driven sci-fi features were suddenly greenlit. I mean, we got Rian Johnson's Looper in 2012, Alfonso Cuarón's Gravity in 2013, and Denis Villeneuve's Arrival in 2016. Inception really paved the way for these films by proving to studios that, hey, you can trust the audience's intellect. You do not have to spoon-feed viewers. You can challenge them with themes of time perception, language, and emotional survival, all wrapped up in a huge, big-budget package.
And if you want to know why studios started actually trusting these auteur directors, the definitive proof lies in one staggering number, $839 million at the global box office. This incredible financial return proved unequivocally that challenging, original, high-concept storytelling isn't just a cool artistic flex. It can be highly, highly lucrative. It proved that you don't always need a superhero cape or a sequel number right there on your title to completely dominate the global box office.
Which leaves us with this final thought. As the landscape of cinema continues to shift under the massive weight of endless franchises, Inception stands out as a true monument to original storytelling. So, are we still dreaming of a return to this kind of filmmaking, or have we finally woken up to the reality of what a truly masterful blockbuster can be? I guess I'll leave that for you to decide. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this sparked your curiosity to go rewatch an absolute cinematic masterpiece.